Here we are, 4th of July, 2025 weekend, and it is 1 year away from the 250. I mean, did time fly or what? I feel like I've been alive for all 250 years of this country. Nevertheless, we're going to hear to look at some more great wrestling memorabilia. You know, I've said it many times on the blog. I've said it here on the vlog, most likely. And pretty much to anyone who will listen, that, summertime makes me think of great old territorial wrestling, great old Southern wrestling. Even being the Yankee boy that I am, I love that hard hitting, the WCW channel that's part of the WWE Vault on YouTube, putting out some classic bashes, full shows, that's hard hitting stuff. It's not the flippy stuff of today. Get off my lawn. But anyway, we're going to look at a great piece of memorabilia. Piece. I'm not a big fan of the word piece. I mean, I'm not going there. But people always like, oh, great piece. It's a grail. I don't do that. I don't play that. But let me tell you, this thing, it really slaps. And it's got history with me, with the North and the South. And what it is my own copy of the 1987 Great American Bash program. Now, this thing is desirable anyway. I mean, it's got the awesome cover. Don't even look at the autographs. Just imagine it without them. Look at that cover. I mean, WWF was the king of marketing for wrestling, no doubt. But, I mean, excuse my French. This is the tits. And I love it. Now, when did I get it? I did not quite get it in 1987. I got it, I think, 8 or 9 years after at a little book sale in the basement of a library in a town called New Kensington, Pennsylvania. And they had a sale where you kind of just filled the bags with books, and then they weighed your bags. And my family was there. I was a kid. My family was there, and I found this. I gravitated towards this, and we went up with our bags of books, and the little sweet old ladies at the desk said, "Oh, you can just have that." Yeah, that made my summer right there. And this is it. And of course, I have added to it, and we'll get to that. But something I wanted to show you that kind of fits in, again, being the Yankee that I am, is the lineup sheet that was included. And it's not, it's not the 87 War Games, neither of them. It's a Pittsburgh show. And actually, they had a show. I don't even know if this would be considered the Bash, because this is actually, let's hold it up there for you. This is actually the September 18th, 1987 show at the Pittsburgh Civic Arena. And you'll see where, this is, of course, the final lineup after they would have done copies of it. And you can see where they changed things. They added the match numbers, and then they copied it. Because cards subject to change, as they always say. So as you can see, we'll go through it briefly here. We had, and I will give you the results. Sean Royal, of course, the New Breed, defeated Jimmy Jackson, who was a local guy. Didn't make it, had a great look. I'm sure you can Google him. Yeah, he had a little, I think he's on the show. There's a Civic Arena show from Crockett, I think from 87 or 88 on YouTube. It's a handheld, and I think he's on that show. I could be wrong, but I've seen him somewhere on some handhelds. So, but yeah, he was a kind of a Pittsburgh guy, as was Colt Steele, who lost to Denny Brown. We had the Barbarian beating Rocky King, Ivan Koloff beating Kendall Windham, Eaton and Lane wrestled Windham and Garvin, Jimmy Garvin, to a 30-minute draw. Luger beat Nikita Koloff by disqualification. The R&R Express beat Arn and Tully, and Flair beat Rugged Ronnie Garvin, or as he was known then, Hands of Stone or Ronnie Garvin. Hands of Stone, Ronnie Garvin. Roger Barnes, that's our guy. Anyway, back to the program. So, I got this started, so if I got it around 95 or 96, I would say it took another 7 years for me to start it, and I started it with who else but the father of the Bash, Dusty Rhodes, and he signed it really big. He was the first one I had on there. And then a lot of these signatures, the majority came the following year, which Dusty was at that show too, but it was my first Charlotte Fan Fest. It was the NWA, it was actually the Mid-Atlantic Legends Fan Fest at the time, run by Greg Price. And I added so many of the signatures there. I mean, you have Ivan Koloff, Paul Jones. Uh, let's see, who else would I have added there? Arn, totally. Nikita was added there. Bob Caudle. The Rock and Rolls, you can see Robert there signing upside down. J.J. Dillon was added there. Later, I added Flair, Animal, Dr. Death right there. I added Luger later. I think Cornette, yeah, Cornette is on here. I added him. Manny signed as the Raging Bull right there. Skandor Akbar, the only time I ever saw him in 2010, had him signed there. And I don't really want to turn it away from you guys, but the Barbarian I did add as well. And Jimmy Garvin was a big one that day in Charlotte, or that weekend, and I'll explain that. And that may be it. Of course, last but not least, I have Magnum T. I got him that first show. And last but not least, I recently, as in the past 3-4 years, I added Paul Ellering. Of course, I don't know why I didn't add him ages ago, because he, of course, was in that all-important original War Games. So I kept everybody in blue as a project. You know, I don't do projects much anymore. I think we're going to be seeing one that I'm currently doing eventually here. But with the prices, first off, with so many gone, I mean, there's like 4 that I have on here gone already, at least. I mean, just off the top of my head. And the prices of it used to be, you know, you could start one on a super ticket. I've explained what super tickets are, where you would, you know, one price, you get all the people on the show, and, you know, just slide it along. It's great. But there aren't many shows that do that anymore. The Gathering, of course, but again, you know, a lot of these people aren't around anymore. And then now, you know, if, like, for example, I named all the people I got in 2004, then I would add people. You know, I added Flair separate, I added Luger separate. Now that would cost a fortune. So if I'm going to get an autograph from, you know, individually, it's going to be probably on something individual to that person, not necessarily a project. But I am glad I did this one. I mean, this is, to me, is priceless. I'd say it's in my top 10 Crockett items, and I have a lot of nice Crockett items. Not to toot my own horn, as Arn Anderson would say, but toot toot. And, you know, let's just look into it here. We'll just briefly thumb through. I mean, the photography is fun. I mean, it captures the Crockett era after the UWF purchase. I mean, there's Big Bubba, and of course there's Earl there. And I actually thought I got Earl on here. Maybe I didn't. But, and of course there's the War Games Match Beyond promo right there. Look at that. Yeah. And just, you know, a lot of just great stuff in here that we're not going to have time to look through. But JJ and Paul. Just each member of the initial War Games match. Dusty with the classic black backslide, which if you were watching the Bash 86 today that Bolt put up, as I mentioned, he of course did the Dusty backslide to Flair and tried to win the belt that way. There's the torture rack. Luger looking all lost. I love Luger though, you know, Luger gets a bad rep. And there's classic Arn. Animal, the least to say about Animal the better. Not one of the best to meet. Sorry. And here we got Doc, Slam, and Ivan, and I have them both signed on the cover here. There's Magnum. Of course, I did get him on here because, you know, he was making appearances already by then. He did not wrestle, of course, on this. You know, he wasn't wrestling after November, December of '86, but, you know, he was still there. And the last, I think we're at the last page. Yeah, the last page. So when I was having this signed in Charlotte in 2004, 21 years ago, Garvin signed the cover, and then he said, "There's a great picture of me and Flair in here." So he opened it up, and he signed that too. So that's really cool. You know, I love when they know, when they know stuff. I mean, it's as much fun when they know stuff about the memorabilia as when they don't. Because when they don't, they're like, "Oh my God, what is this?" They love it. When they do know it, and then they have a cool little story, a cool remembrance, that's awesome too. And then on the back, you have some tooting of the Jim Crockett Promotions horn right there. You got Crockett Cup, you got Starrcade, you got Bunkhouse Stampede. I have programs from all of those. We'll be going through those. I mean, the Crockett stuff, I love the Crockett stuff. I love the whole era. It's not what I grew up with. I'm going to do a vlog where I talk about my fandom, the history of my fandom. Not that anyone gives a flying you-know-what, but hey, why not? And we'll talk about it. But I did not grow up watching Crockett. I have memories here and there. And I have a weird AWA memory that I really only have because of the tape that we'll talk about. So, I was a WWF kid. My parents grew up on Bruno, and I was raised on like Primetime and Saturday Night's Main Event. We'll talk about that. But up until 10 years ago, when I really stopped watching the current product, I always said I was the luckiest type of wrestling fan, and I still say that I am, just disqualifying today's product. Why? Because I liked all of it. Every style appealed to me, whether it was the WWF, which was the broad glitz glamour. Some people say cartoon. I don't like to say cartoon. I call it like the glitzy, glamorous entertainment. It was over the top. It was broad. It was like you have broad comedy, broad humor. You had broad wrestling. It was wrestling for the masses. It was wrestling with that shiny gloss. Even in the 70s, when it was the Worldwide Wrestling Federation, yeah, the production values might not have been there, but it still had it was different. The Southern Wrestling, which of course by the mid 80s all but evolved totally into Jim Crockett Promotions. That's why by the mid 80s NWA and Jim Crockett Promotions were interchangeable. That is the gritty stuff. It's the realistic stuff. I'm not telling you anything you don't already know, but that's what it is. That's what it was. And I love that. Then, looking at Japan, Mexico. I mean, they're all different. They're all different styles. And then, you go away from Crockett. Crockett tried to be, the Southern wrestling with a bit of the entertainment in it. You get to some of the other territories, it's completely different. So I love it all. I do. And I can sit and watch, I always used to, another thing I always told people, I can get as much enjoyment out of a Steamboat Flair match as I do out of like Akeem and Hercules. That was always the example I used. There was an Akeem Hercules bout on a Coliseum video back in the day, and I literally can get the same enjoyment out of both. I never understood the star ratings, and I was a Meltzer devotee for many years in between there. Didn't always agree with everything he said, but I never got the whole star thing. Oh, this is a 5-star match. I don't. It's wrestling. I just don't get it. If I watch a match, it's because it entertained me, not because, oh, work rate. Oh, don't get me started on work rate. Anyway, love all wrestling up until about 10 years ago. And again, Crockett was great. It was great stuff. I hope you enjoyed this great stuff, and I hope you're enjoying the vlog. Passe, but like and subscribe, and keep watching. Thanks.